The Roman legions. Imagine a fighting force so relentless and efficient that it changed the course of ancient history. How were they really organized? What was their command structure? How extensive was their logistics system? How were they deployed on the battlefield? The core of every Roman legion was the legionary. We will take you through its internal structure, from the humble contubernium to the imposing cohort. During their service, was integrated into a small group of companions known as contubernium. Join us on this journey to the heart of Roman military power and discover the hidden details behind one of the most formidable forces humanity has ever known. The Roman legions are celebrated for their countless historical achievements, but we often do not stop to deeply analyze their essential nature. But have you ever wondered how this war machine was really organized? In this video, we will unravel secrets that have been hidden for centuries and explore the crucial role of officers. Complex logistics and siege equipment went through rigorous training and physical demands, or that each unit of soldiers lived and worked in close camaraderie. According to the military writer Flavius Vegetius, the ideal recruit came from the countryside, from a region with a temperate climate. Did you know that each legionnaire, before becoming a war machine, sharing tasks and responsibilities in the field? Prepare to discover how a legion was organized to conquer and maintain a vast empire. Welcome to our channel. Today we are going to delve into one of the most fascinating aspects of military history, the beating heart of Rome. The soldiers were ready to join the ranks of the legions and participate in battles. Each legionary candidates for this honor had to meet certain specific requirements and pass a series of rigorous tests. Although there is some debate about this, most experts agree that this group was made up of 8 legionaries and should be approximately 6 feet tall. After swearing allegiance and completing intense 4-month training, accompanied by 1 or 2 military slaves, as well as 1 or 2 mules, depending on supply needs, from the structure and command ranks to the meticulous logistical system that made the legions operate with almost military precision. This group also had a millstone and a standard A-frame tent. The contubernium was the unit with which a legionary shared most of his time. Younger legionaries could be sent to collect fodder and firewood for the camp. It was not a functional military unit that could defend itself in battle. To do this, foods that formed the basis of a legionnaire's daily diet, supplemented with salted meat, vegetables, cheese. Each contubernium operated as a self-sufficient unit. For example, while slaves were in charge of setting up the tent, was loaded on the unit's mule. However, although the contubernium was self-sufficient on a day-to-day basis, 10 contuberniums were grouped together, thus forming the century for a combined total of 80 legionaries, forging such close ties that in colloquial Latin there emerged the term contubernalis to refer to that unbreakable camaraderie. When camping, sleeping bag, rations and personal items, heavier equipment, Zuka's tent, stakes, millstone, and other items. Each soldier carried about 20 kilograms of weapons and armor. In addition to their entrenching tools, since they served as the link that integrated the men of a century into the structure of the Roman legion. In terms of discipline and training, the centurion in command and his optio were essential to keep the unit well trained, an activity that was carried out every night, which was used to make bread, cookies, and porridge. While others dedicated themselves to preparing food, one of the most laborious tasks was grinding grain, while the tesserarius was responsible for distributing passwords and coordinating the sentries. Regarding financial management, the century was assigned a series of officers. The centurion was the commanding officer. The optio was his second. The tesserarius was the third and watchman. The signifer was the standard bearer, and the cornicularius was the trumpeter. The cornicularius had the responsibility of gathering the men for roll call, inspections, and march. Wine and olive oil. In moments of rest, the members of the contubernium took advantage of their free time to play. These officers also had their own support staff, mules, tents, and other assets. Their role was crucial. These officers were responsible for keeping track of each soldier's salary and the deductions applied, 60 to 120 mules, and approximately 66 tents. The first cohort of each legion, using disciplinary batons such as the vitus and hastel to impose order, during the execution of daily tasks, bet and relax. When it was time to move, the group efficiently packed their belongings for transportation. 10 to 20 slaves, 10 to 20 mules, and 11 tents. In keeping with its role on the battlefield, the signifer was in charge of managing the unit's finances, and the cornicularius was in charge of military personnel and other common expenses. During marches, the unit was led by its centurion, accompanied by the signifer and the cornicularius, while the optio and the tesserarius probably marched in the rear. The exact location of the signifer and the cornicularius has been the subject of debate, resulting in approximately 2/3 of a legionnaire's annual salary going to food, clothing, ensuring order in the column. On the battlefield, a similar order was maintained, with the commander at the front. Thus was born the cohort, a structure that grouped 6 centuries into a single contingent. Although a unit of around 100 men could sustain itself in combat, its strategic usefulness was limited. These cavalrymen had 1 or 2 spare horses, and their equipment was carried by about 60 mules, and their drivers, allowing a larger group to have a more decisive role, both on the battlefield and in other operations. As some believe that they were located close to the centurion to facilitate command, while others placed them further back, a standard cohort was composed of 480 legionaries, 30 officers, between 60 and 120 slaves. For this reason, carrying the legionary eagle in combat was an exclusive honor reserved for its aquilifers, usually on the right, directing the action, while his aides were in charge of supervising the formation, build infrastructure, or quickly respond to threats. This group was virtually self-sufficient. The standard and most iconic unit of the Roman army was the legion, which enjoyed great prestige, was made up of 5 centuries, but with a double complement, known as its Iron Corps, served as inspiration and example to the younger soldiers within their cohorts, bringing its total number to 800 legionaries. Usually, the veterans of a legion, the cohort became the usual operational unit, assigned to various tasks. For example, it could be sent to reinforce strategic areas. Using the higher figures from our previous estimates, a legion would also include approximately 295 officers, which consisted of 10 cohorts with a theoretical strength of around 5,120 soldiers, with a contingent of approximately 1,000 men, capable of solving any problem quickly and efficiently, 1,400 slaves, 1,400 mules, and around 660 tents. However, this sacred banner represented the spirit of the army and was kept in a special shrine in the center of a legionary camp or fortress. Each legion was assigned a unit of cavalry, known according to epigraphic evidence as equit legiones, which were essentially miniature legions. Often, 2 cohorts were deployed under the command of a single commander. Augustus's reforms established a standardized size, number, and position for legions throughout the empire. Therefore, it was rare to see legions moving in their entirety outside of major campaigns. Instead, as indicated by archaeological records showing a higher prevalence of cohort camps compared to legionary fortresses, a legion had other notable elements. For example, Josephus mentions that during the first years of the Principate, these horsemen, probably in charge of scouting and serving as the general's direct bodyguards, when the need arose, 1 or more cohorts were temporarily united into makeshift units called vexellationes. Each terma was directed by an officer, the decurion, and had 2 non-commissioned officers. Although estimates vary, it is generally accepted that each century had a small scorpion seeking to protect them and ensure the combative effectiveness of the front line. The Romans of the Republic had discovered that, with a total of 10 in the Legion, additional siege equipment was added as needed, numbered 120 soldiers, organized into 4 groups of 30 men, called turmi, making a total of 60 for the Legion. During major campaigns, each cohort was assigned a medium ballista, while the riders themselves were housed in about 15 tents. In addition, the legions were assigned a corps of artillery, the duplicarius and the sesquiplicarius, as well as a standard bearer. The signifer, maintenance and transportation of the siege equipment, required a significant logistical train. It can be estimated that at least 15 4-ox carts were used to transport the components of the medium and large siege pieces. Often overlooked, scribes were critical to maintaining the institutional integrity of the legion. While the smaller scorpions were transported by a mule assigned to each century, the fabri, including battering rams and great onagers, assuming a mix of 5 pieces, the handling, which moved alongside the army as a source of food. At the head of this vast force were several high-ranking officers. It is useful to examine the ranks of the officers in greater detail, starting with the centurions. Among the support staff were the legion's scribes, estimated at about 15 men with 15 supply mules, bringing the total to approximately 1,600 animals, equivalent to about 1 mule for every 5 men in the legion. These, together with the various non-commissioned officers, constituted the most important hierarchy of the legion, and more. In addition, the legion had to have various spare parts, food. It can be estimated that transporting all this equipment would have required around 50 additional mules. Each century was commanded by 1, numbering about 60 in total per legion. However, not all centurions had the same rank, assisted by 20 auxiliaries, with 10 2-horse ambulance carts and 10 medical tents. Finally, the legionary legate, the camp prefect, seat tribune, along with musicians and standard bearers. Although we lack exact figures, it is estimated that there were about 10 doctors, 1 per cohort. Personal effects and other items necessary for its operation and transportation, in the absence of explicit records, who led the 3rd and 4th centuries, in the hastatus prior and hastatus posterior, who led the 5th and 6th centuries. Among the cohorts, although the exact number is not defined, it is estimated that there were around 10 specialists, 1 per cohort, in charge of artillery and other engineering needs. Were an essential group of engineers managing records such as payrolls, service reports, supply counts, reconnaissance reports, whose experience allowed them to supervise the work of the general workers. Another crucial group was the Legion's medical staff. The ratio between animals and humans increases even further if we consider the herds of cattle. The officers of the 1st cohort were the most experienced, while those of the 10th cohort were the youngest, a highly coveted position that usually lasted only a year and marked the climax of a long career in the military. The legate or prefect was assisted by 6 tribunes, of which, in the Republican era, were also non-professionals from the political elite. There was a strict system of ranks that originated in the traditions of the manipular armies of the Republic. It is important to note that the prestige of the centurions of the 1st cohort was reflected in the fact that their 5 officers were known as the primi ordines. Over time, as legions established themselves in fixed positions, the role of the primus pilus became more administrative. However, most legions were under the command of non-professional legates, selected from the senatorial class. The most experienced among them was the primus pilus. In order from highest to lowest rank, the titles of the centurions were the following: the pilus prior and pilus posterior. who commanded the 1st and 2nd centuries respectively, the princeps prior and princeps posterior. During the Principate, in addition to the 5 tribuni Augusta Clavi, who could rise from the ranks of the centurions, armories, and other essential resources, although the arrangement of these bases was quite regular, their dimensions could vary according to needs. They were well equipped with facilities ranging from administrative buildings and barracks to hospitals. Granaries, 0.5% would be specialists, and 22% would be military slaves. This type of deployment, only in great campaigns, was a legion assembled in its entirety, and it's, at that time, or about 23 football fields. According to records, it was rare for a legion to be at their base at the same time. These permanent positions began to be established during the reign of Augustus as a way of fortifying the borders of the empire. Although they had moats, walls, and towers, they were not designed to be impenetrable, but rather to offer adequate defense and serve as strategic operations centers on the move or in battle. Let us look at the real size of each of them. As an example, let us assume a fort measuring approximately 470 by 470 meters. This is equivalent to 220,000 square meters, or about 55 acres. The tribunes provided crucial tactical command during combat, as well as performing administrative roles in peacetime. Generally, a legion was deployed in the following order: the scouts, the vanguard, the officers. Let us imagine a complete parade of the entire force and its equipment. It would cover about 25 square kilometers and would have around 9,000 troops. In contrast, a rider at 40 kilometers per hour could cross the entire length of the column in about 3 minutes. Most of the time, the soldiers were on leave, on guard duty, or performing other missions. Within this area, approximately 80% would be humans and 20% animals. The Tribunus Lataclavius, who was a young man from the senatorial class, who served in the legion for a year before returning to his political career. Together, among humans, 73% would be in infantry or cavalry. 4.5% would be officers. The main body of the legion, the baggage train and the rear guard, were the key components of the deployment. However, is not very representative of historical reality. The most common thing is to find a legion in its camp. Now, let us take a step back to appreciate the true size of the legions in their various forms. Rather, its primary function was to act as a staging point for offensive operations. This arrangement is consistent with the widest Roman roads, which measured around 6 meters wide. In this configuration, one of the most typical places to find a legion would be its base of operations, the legion camp. These bases served as centers where the legions congregated, gathered supplies, and monitored their area of operations. Furthermore, if we consider that several centuries maintained a separation of 2 or 3 meters laterally and 8.5 meters deep, the column of approximately 7,200 men and 1,900 animals extends over 1.9 kilometers at a marching speed of about 5 kilometers per hour. A complete legion and its baggage train would take 23 minutes to pass a given point. For the marching legion, let us assume that each rank consists of up to 6 men prepared to march to war. This deployment was carried out in a meticulous and disciplined manner. The legions of the empire exhibited much greater flexibility in their arrangement. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Give the video a like if you found it interesting. If we assume that a typical century is arranged in 8 ranks of 10 men, it would occupy an area of 16 by 13.5 meters. However, it is important to remember that the most significant battles of the Roman era did not involve a single legion. To put this into perspective, it would take a soldier about 4.5 minutes to cross the front on foot, but many more. At its peak, the Roman Empire numbered at least 30 legions. Therefore, these logistical considerations are crucial to understanding the experience of being on an ancient battlefield. If you like this trip to the past and want to continue discovering more historical secrets like these, The exact form of deployment varied depending on the tactical situation and the commander's preferences. Despite this flexibility, the figures presented in this video must be multiplied by many to begin to visualize the real magnitude. Clearly identifying a human figure at the opposite end would be quite difficult. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating exploration of the beating heart of Rome and its legions. The legion would deploy for combat, while the armies of the Republic were commonly deployed in standard AAACs. I hope this explanation has provided a basic understanding of the topic and the value of placing these details in their proper spatial context. The 2,000 soldiers of cohorts 7 to 10 form the first line. Turn on the notification bell so you do not miss any new content and be the first to know about our upcoming historical adventures. See you next time. While a horseman would do so in about half a minute at a gallop, an archer, with an effective range of 200 meters, the 1,500 soldiers from cohorts 4 to 6 constitute the second line. However, these figures assume ideal conditions. If the roads were narrow or progress was slowed by other factors, most scholars agree that soldiers in a unit were placed approximately 1 meter wide and 2 meters deep. The total formation would have a facade of approximately 609 meters wide and a depth of 138 meters. The length of the column could easily double, extending to more than 3.8 kilometers. In such circumstances, the 1,900 soldiers from cohorts 1 to 3 could shoot only 33% of the front of the legion. For someone observing from this distance, along with cavalry, form the third line to protect the rear and act as an emergency reaction force. It would take up to 45 minutes for the legion to pass and 6 minutes for a horseman to travel the column from back to front. Leave your comments below and tell us what aspect of the Roman legion you would like to explore in future videos. To illustrate, we have assumed that our single legion has adopted a Republican-style triple deployment in this scenario. This underlines the vulnerability of an army on the move. Despite these challenges, if no attack occurred, the legion camped each night during its journey, slowly advancing towards enemy territory. When the time for battle arrived, the usual arrangement followed the prudent idea of organizing troops in the center, wings, and, most importantly, reserves. The usual arrangement followed the prudent idea of organizing troops in the center, wings, and